Thursday with Ace. The thunder rolls outside. Yeah, as I'm studying here, I've been studying the 19th century and also during the Dust Bowl and the stories that came out during those events, during the drought and all that. 8 years, no rain, no snow. Temperatures of like people lived in their basement. There was one place, one state, they ate dandelions for 2 years. People were starving, but the president at that time, everything's fine, people. America's fine. Nobody's starving. Yet there was people in states starving. It was all created, in my opinion, by the bankers, by the government, by those that control stocks and shit like that. And it was created to harm and try to destroy the United States, but it didn't get destroyed. It survived that event. People repented. People turned to God. And they strive to say that we're going to treat the land better and we're going to do things different. Well, that was short-lived, wasn't it? Yeah. People put all their trust in the banks, the stocks, the government, and also, hey, go grow all that biofuel. Yeah, let's just cover the land and let's just keep farming and farming. Yeah, and that's what they did just in the 1920s, 1930s there. Beforehand, they really fucked it over with that, the government saying because of the situation between Germany and Russia, there was sanctions on Russia. So then let's take territory away from the Comanches and let's plow this ground that should have never been plowed and planted wheat, which would have been perfect for cattle. But no, let's plant wheat. Let's rip up all this natural, fola and plant wheat. And the government subsidized and said, hey, just, it's a boom. And everybody was getting rich. Everybody was just making money. And they were just growing, and they did it. They grew a shitload of wheat. Then what happened? They had the old stock collapse, market collapse, and the farmers and the people and the Americans realized that the bankers had played with their money, and there was no more money for them. Their money was gone. Their money, their savings were gone. And then the buyers of wheat and the ones who controlled the price on wheat fucked over the farmer and made it to the point that the farmer was actually paying to harvest the wheat. He was going broke in the hole harvesting the wheat. And then there was stockpiles and stockpiles because this orchestrated event. People were starving in other states. And they had all this wheat, all this food. But the president said, nah. We're not going to get involved in capitalism and mess with the market, which he could have just fed that wheat and bought it for the states that were starving. Like one eating dandelions for 2 years. No rain, no snow for 8 years. The old UN and the carbon ones and the global warming would have everybody shitting if that event started happening, eh? They'd blame you for everything. It's your plastic. It's every bit of carbon. You just can't drive cars anymore. You gotta stop. The temperature's getting too warm. People were living in their basements during when the heat and the rain stopped and different things. It was over 100 degrees. It was the hottest they ever experienced, these ones, and they just stayed in their basements. Then they started getting weird storms, and then strange insects were showing up, like tarantulas in places that there was no tarantulas to be, and then like black widow spiders and green worms. When the strange dust bowl hit them, because they had plowed everything up, and then when the winds started, when the soil just turned, it just lifted the dust up, and it was just a static electricity event that wiped out vehicles. People couldn't even touch another person or they would knock themselves over from the shock. They had to live indoors. Just breathing was like dying in that event, and it was going on for more than a day. These events, when it hit the ones on the East Coast was when, like, I think one in New York or something, they just said the ones in the Mid-East were just, pretending there's nothing going on. Then a storm that it just picked up and it just went all over the East. It just covered them and it shorted out everything. But the UN wants you to think that your carbon, the product of life, is killing the world. And they use this culture of face science that you can't question them. You can't bring up other topics. How, like, why in the 19th century, why even just during the 1930s, the 1920s, we were dealing with shit that was more intense and worse than they are dealing with. And if this is a cycle every 100 years, every 10 years, whatever, that the same storm cycle type of thing returns, and maybe we won't get rain for 8 years and in areas. So they want to blame us because they don't want us to look at weather patterns, weather history, any of this. We just have to live by what they say, and they say it's because of your carb and your vehicles and all that. It's because of all these certain things. Blaming it on the human, saying that the money you give us is going to change this event, when they know it ain't going to change shit. It's just a weather pattern like the seasons. And so they rob us and try to enslave us because they don't teach history anymore. And they have dumbed down the young people, making them just smart enough to work the machines, but dumb enough to take the orders from these weird people and not question it. Because, you dare question, you'll be canceled. You'll be seen a fool. You'll be this and that. People should look at the 19th century. Look at how they played the two ones into Civil War. And how then England, getting all weird, went after the U.S. afterwards. And how Canada helped William Booth setting up with the Union in Quebec to establish a place to hide the money for the Confederates. To then, because they didn't like this economic, getting rid of slaves and cheap labor and immigrant labor that they brought in, they didn't like the loss of that. They didn't like these ones getting rights. So there was this fight against the Union during the 19th century. Then they had the storm of the plagues. They had the earthquakes. Then we work into where things started getting better, but then there was this government push, just let's grow wheat and let's steal the land from the Comanches and all kinds of bullshit going on. And I think it's just due from the cult, and that was the beginning of when that weird cult, the Legion cult, the 1666 or whatever, the Babylonian cult, started their shit on working at destroying the U.S. They tried then, they failed. So another cycle comes around and they're gonna try again with war, plague, with, all kinds of weird shit. But I think this weather pattern and why they've always been claiming like this extreme events happening, and they've always been wrong, but they know the pattern is going to eventually show up. So if they just keep repeating, eventually they'll get it right. And so this is why they play the con, the UN, that if they can get before the event that repeats itself like it did in the early 20th century, so then everybody who has been dumbed down will go along with the blame on humans, and that only you being enslaved under this UNWEF, this CCP, this Babylonian mindset, that this is all due to you and not a pattern of weather. So you must be enslaved, and they know that eventually they'll get out of that weather pattern into better times, like they did eventually get rain after 8 years in the US, and then things got better. And we are where we are now. So that is my talk today. Because if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it. And I think the ones playing games, when that heat hits, to use different things that they have in place, like how they have subsidized on biofuels and getting farmers then to just grow fuel instead of food, and the plague with the bioweapon and other events events, even right down to like the Russian flu at the end of the 19th century. And now the CVID is actually a strain of the Russian flu that was at the end of the 19th century before, the World War One, and then into the Dust Bowl times. So learn from history, people. And yeah, this is gonna be an interesting year. We got World War III started because now the British MP is saying that, yeah, we're at war with Russia, and Ukraine given the permission to go attack deep into Russia. It's all for the cult. The Babylonian cult plays the left and the right. So stand together in united U.S. because they want to destroy you and play you with things and hope that you don't know history. Hope you don't know what happened before. So when it happens again, you think it's because of what the UN says it's because, not because of just a weather pattern. Anyway, take it easy and beautiful. I love you. And I hope all is awesome. Everyone else, take it easy. And hey, the wake up is soon, eh? Later.